chosen this week's book because it is about a major sporting event which took place on the 3rd of May 1980, 40 years ago, but not the most pleasant event and day for myself. The book is Last One Out, When Hull Invaded Wembley by Vince Groak, a long-standing Hull FC fan. I highly recommend this book because it does not just feature the game, it also looks back at the social history of the Hull area from the mid-1970s to the early 80s, talks about industry, cinema, music, television, etc. And reading about the state of sport in Hull in the mid-1970s, the old Daily Mail, Hull Kingston Rovers reporter then, John Sexton, says, and I'll read from the book, this is about a Rovers team. Too many lack heart. Where are the hard men in the side? And warming to his theme, the reporter then sets his sights on the directors, the capital letters, Sexton's own. The Robins have no training pitch, and on dark nights nowhere can they train except Craven Park. But, in capital letters, they are not permitted to use the whole pitch. This is ridiculous restriction, but the board were particularly criticised for their involvement in team affairs. It's also time the team was selected by one man, the coach, Arthur Bunting. Selection by committee is their own policy. If you pay the man to coach the team, you should be able to pick the team. In August 1974, a Hull City shareholders meeting came to life when one supporter, stroke shareholder, stood up and said it was time Hull City put an end to their unsuccessful meanderings, got new blood on the board and rid the club of the tatty Fishtown image of the last 74 years, some 34 years before Premier League football was realised. And as for Hull FC, equally frustrated reporter Dick Tingle said, Hull FC have now spent 2 divisions in Division 2 and the fans are not going to wait much longer. Even the 1500 crowd has started dwindling away to well under 1,000. So obviously, times were very good then. 1975, the lowest ever attendance at the Boulevard, 983 versus Huyton. Hull won 17-15. But if you speak to people in Hull, I think there was about 5,000 claimed over there now. 1974, directors still pick the team. Big changes on the Hull FC board in 1975. 1978, at a turning point, Hull FC signed Steve Norton, and quite interesting what Steve Norton had to say. This is Steve Norton about to sign for Hull FC. I knew Hull FC were going to be my club. Immediately, it was when the chairman and director, Charlie Watson and Roy Wardby, turned up to see me. They were eating fish and chips out of the newspaper, and they bought a box of cream cakes. Cream cakes, love them. I thought, these are straight up normal people I can play for, but I still told them I've got an agreement with Peter Fox at Bradford. They're offering me more money than thee. Luckily, Mal really wanted to sign Jimmy Crampton from Hull, and so the clubs managed to do a deal and I signed for Hull. So, yeah. Major disaster in 1978, both Tower and Regent cinemas and Annaby Road closed. That sort of put a stop to some of my nights out. 1978, Roger Millward was player coach at KR, but John Sexton continues with his honest match reports, inept and pathetic after a defeat at Bradford. Then regional sports journalists went on strike for 8 weeks, so there were no reports on local matches in the Hull Daily Mail. John Millington also says in the book about players, rugby league players, being part-time, working during the day, lugging tons of concrete, then had to train 3 nights a week. Just goes to show how difficult times were then. Hull FC start to sign the West Yorkshire lads, Charlie Birdsall, Ronnie Wildman, followed by Welshman Paul Woods and Graham Walters. Start of the 1979 season, Roger Millward has played 450 games in nearly 14 years at Hull KR. Starts his 17th attempt to get to Wembley. 1979, that wonderful night at the Boulevard, which we did enjoy, the BBC Floodlit final. Hull FC 13, Hull KR 3. The Challenge Cup starts 1979-80. KR beat Wigan in the first round, 18-13. Hull FC played the Cumbrian amateur team and win 33-10. In the second round, Rovers 28, Castleford 3. Hull FC beat York at the Boulevard. The third round, Hull KR 23, Warrington 11. Bradford 0, FC 3. Just around about that time as well, FC were at home on a Friday night. There was an accident at the construction site that was commonly known then as the Humber Bridge. Some of the workers had bumped off to the game on the Friday night. 4 men were injured, but after a roll call, many more were missing. An announcement was made over the tammy at the Boulevard. Can the workers get back to the Humber Bridge site, please? You shouldn't be here. I was at that game and I remember that announcement. That rolled on to the semi-finals of the Challenge Cup, KR 20, Halifax 7 at Headingley, and then the following weekend I was at this game as well, Hull FC 10, Widnes 5 at Swinton. Who could ever forget that? It was in front of a massive following from FC. In fact, both clubs always had massive following in those days. On to Wembley. Each club were allocated 22,000 tickets for the final. Then began a major logistics operation to get everyone to the game. FC fans started queuing at 6 p.m. the night before until the ticket office in Airlie Street opened at 9 a.m. the following day. It was estimated that 60,000 people went from Hull. That's 25% of the population, 10,000 allegedly by train. The club struggled to get enough merchandise for the fans, even though it was only £12.50 for a replica shirt, £7.50 for a sweatshirt, and £1.10 for a scarf. Hull City tried to cancel their own game that day against Southend, but as usual, the FA said no, and City went on to win 1-0 in front of a crowd of 3,700. Even got a mention on BBC Sports Night. Harry Carpenter said the Rugby League Cup final on Saturday between those two marvellous teams from Hull. It's not often getting mentions on Rugby League on national television. John Sexton, Dick Tingle were the only Hull Daily Mail reporters going to Wembley at that time. The paper at that time used to sell 100,000 copies every day. It takes some believing that. And 30 to 40,000 sports mails on a Saturday. That brings me to a very famous message that was shown up. The famous sign, which is what the book is based on, Last One Out. Meanwhile, back in Hull, 41-year-old haulier Fred Lewis knocked off work early and went to the fruit market area, from where he and his 18-year-old son Dean, friends of Charlie Grantham and Fred Donahue, their children were to head south in Fred's Volkswagen motorhome. Before departure, Charlie picked up an empty cardboard flower box, grabbed a marker pen and wrote perhaps the most famous piece of graffiti in Rugby League history. He said, "We thought it would be a laugh." Fred, who was now aged 77, as we neared the Humber Bridge, pulled over, jumped out, found the signpost to which I fastened our sign before driving off. Never thought anything else about it. It was only a few days later, when we saw it on the news, that we realised how popular it had been. And it read, "Last one out, turn the lights off," a very, very famous sign. And as I said, it's the reading of what the book is named after. Right, page 186. David Howser was working for the RFL, said of the event, the 1980 Challenge Cup final was a success because of how the supporters responded and behaved. There was no trouble at all at the Wembley Cup final. Page 186, just do another bit of a reading. And this was with regards to how the players were due to address, I think it was the Queen Mother that day, in the pre-match presentation. By 1 p.m, its players were in their dressing room, settling in, reading telegrams they'd been sent before a visit from the Royal Equerry. I hope we got that right. It was very formal, said Sammy Lloyd. We stood there a bit awkward while we explained how we should behave when we met her. When new chaps are introduced to Her Majesty and she offers her hand, one does not shake it, one simply accepts it and bows one's head slightly, like so. We all nodded and looked at Paul Woods, hoping he was listening and wouldn't stick the nut on her. Typical rugby league banter. Yeah. During the game, the referee Fred Lindop, usual referees, disallowed 5 tries, and this was in the era before video refereeing. It was not the most entertaining game, with Rovers winning 10-5, which they named their bar at their new ground, the 10-5 Club. That was in 1989. Hull FC fan and maths teacher Dave Wilson has calculated that in any particular season there is a 0.23% chance of the two clubs meeting in the Challenge Cup final. Thank God we, the FC fans, put paid to that song by winning the Challenge Cup at Wembley on the 27th of August 2016. And I will go to my final reading on page 263. And this is what Vince Groak said, and it's quite profound really. Vince says, I wrote this book because nobody else had written it. The late 1970s and the early 1980s were a uniquely special time in the history of rugby league in Hull, but few people had ever attempted to record much of it. So it seemed like a book was long overdue, but as I began my research, focusing on the spring of 1980, I found myself going further and further back to the start of the season, to the record-breaking season before that, and then to fully appreciate 1980, I realised I had to return to the middle of the decade, when Wembley was but an impossible dream. From the mid-1970s, the perspective was different. Hull was different. It still had the fishing industry. There was still optimism about the future, about Humberside and Humber Bridge. So that was part of the story that couldn't be ignored either. And so, as I set out to write about rugby league, I found that the city kept coming into the foreground. It wouldn't keep away. So I'd highly recommend this book. It's been about an era that has been really well researched, and it's got very good attention to detail and a very interesting read. And what I would say is I was asked to review a book a few weeks ago by a school in Bridlington, which was the George Best one, which I did and sent to the school, but they haven't bothered to sort of put it up online as I said they would. Instead they've been put some book up of poems about the moon, so obviously. And we are at the minute rather busy at the Bridlington Football Club, building the new clubhouse and also getting ready if we ever start again for the seasons and running the football club. So that would be at the minute my last book review, but before I do, I'd also recommend this book, right? I've got most books about Brian Clough. This is a particularly interesting book, and it's called Me and My Big Mouth. Not me, but the book. It's called Me and My Big Mouth, when Clough sounded off in the TV Times. He used to write a weekly column in the TV Times, and it was very, very controversial. And he also used to appear on a lot of the football programmes as a pundit, as they do nowadays. But he was very forthright in his views. So if you get a chance to get that book, it's really good. It's by a guy called Graham Denton. So there we go. Stay alert, as they say, and be in touch about the football club soon. Cheers.